This is, of course, an unprecedented situation. These are unprecedented times. We are in an unprecedented crisis. It's an unprecedented situation. We are living in unprecedented times, and you've had to make unprecedented sacrifices. It is also an unprecedented opportunity. Unprecedented investments in healthcare, unprecedented direct support to Canadians. We are in an unprecedented global pandemic that really sucks.
Well, I think we can all agree it has been an unprecedented year. Who better to look back on the political year that was and perhaps ahead to 2021 than at issue? Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj all here for our holiday tradition that I'm sorry we are not doing in person. It is usually the one time a year that I see you all, so obviously the pandemic's keeping us apart. Let's focus the first part on the pandemic. Let me start by asking all of you just sort of quickly how you would describe the federal government's response to the pandemic. I'll start with you, Althea.
I guess you could say unprecedented, but I'm not going to. I'd say slow to start and then rushed. I think it's very clear that the government was caught flat-footed. The Prime Minister announced just before Christmas that he, in fact, didn't realize how serious COVID-19 was until early March when his wife caught the disease. And then rushed in terms of delivering help to Canadians. They clearly did not think things through. The wage subsidy, its impact on CERB, what should come first, how to roll out more money to most people. There are still gaps that have not been filled. Maybe they should have given money to everybody and clawed it back in taxes, and then rushed to get vaccines. So, rush is not always a bad thing.
Chantal.
To go back to unprecedented, as it is the word of the evening, I've covered a lot of governments that have had a crisis thrown their way that they didn't see coming, a unity crisis in the case of Jean Chrétien, 9/11, the global financial crisis. This is of a completely different magnitude, and it is unprecedented. Up to a point, I would say one of the strengths of the government's response has been the fact that Justin Trudeau and the premiers, not just him, have managed in public to mostly sing from the same hymn book. I think that really mattered, that we did not have the kind of divisions that we have witnessed in the United States. Whether it made a huge difference, possibly, probably, but I think it made Canadians feel more secure to hear the Prime Minister and the Premier of Ontario, people who do not normally get along, speak in the same voice about the issue.
How would you characterize their response, Andrew?
I think I would distinguish between the management of the public health crisis versus the social and economic crisis that resulted from that. The first was confused and late and slow, and I did not think it was terribly well handled at all. And it made them have to really scramble and improvise on the economic response to that. I think they improvised rather well. I think the worst criticism you can make a lot of these programs is it was kind of overkill, that it wound up with people actually having higher incomes than before. They overcompensated people in terms of their loss of income. So if they'd had more time, if they'd been better prepared on the public health front, maybe they would have done a better job on the economic and income support file. But as I say, given the conditions they were in, given the degree to which they were forced to scramble, I think they improvised well.
What was the biggest political lesson learned, do you think, from the pandemic, or the political legacy maybe that you hope would come out of this, Althea?
For me, I think the lesson I learned is that big things can happen if governments really want to make them happen. We're often told that, the bureaucracy moves at a snail's pace. And the reason that, there's no childcare is because it's really hard to accomplish. Well, big things can happen very quickly if the government sets its mind to it. And so I think that if there's public pressure for the government to do something, it will do it, and it can do so very quickly.
Yep, that's a good one. The government probably learned that lesson too. Chantal, same to you.
And same lesson. Things that most of us who cover federal politics or provincial politics would have not believed possible, to churn out programs at the pace that they were churned out, to get vaccine approval in a timely manner. It kind of defeats this notion that everything has to go very slowly and change never happens. It's going to be harder for governments in the future after this to argue that it's going to take time, more than one mandate, possibly more than their own life in government to get anything done. And that may explain why suddenly people are surprised that there are like announcements on climate change that are suddenly decisive. It may be that maybe the government itself has realized that it's like watching TV series these days compared to 1960.
That's right.
Everything happens faster.
Yeah, and you don't have to
more
wait till the
interesting.
next week to find out how it ended. Same to you, Andrew, in terms of lessons or political legacies.
I think there are two contending lessons. The one that a lot of people want to draw is that the lesson of this is that we were too globalized, we're too exposed, supply chains were too stretched. We need to onshore capacity, we need to be more resilient, we need to build in more redundancy. I think that's the wrong lesson. I think the right lesson is be prepared. If we had better early warning systems, if we'd stockpiled equipment, if we'd had better advice on masks and on testing, et cetera, if we would have done a better job in this pandemic, and we'll be able to do a better job in future pandemics, such that we don't need to avoid globalization. We can still buy masks, et cetera, in the cheapest market around the world, but we can do so ahead of time rather than waiting until the middle of a pandemic to do it.
Okay, but before I ask you one more question, and the question is, who impressed you most with leadership? I want to play a clip from last year's panel, because when someone makes a good pick, they deserve to get recognition for that. So here's Andrew.
If I'm judging by the files that she's been handed, I'm going to say Anita Anand, rookie MP, professor of law and private life, now the new Minister of Procurement and Public Services.
There you go, Andrew. Look at you. You have picked someone who, I didn't look at everybody's, all your answers, but that one stood out to my producer, Ariel, because Anand has performed and she has obviously been under a lot of stress to procure. But give me your pick this year, Andrew.
I'm going to say the public health officers. They've been the ones who've been out front. They've become, in some cases, kind of rock stars because they were the ones who had the expertise. And I think it speaks well of our political class that they were willing to put them out front on a lot of these things and not try to grandstand too much. I mean, there's been some of that. But letting the scientists and letting the experts do the talking, I think, is a smart political move, but also a good move in the middle of a crisis when people don't know what to believe.
Best leadership person or thing for you, Chantal?
I went to politicians and I picked a premier. I picked BC Premier John Horgan because the pandemic came early to BC, did well during the first wave, but also managed to have an election in the middle of a pandemic and actually win a majority and still hang on, despite the second wave, to the trust of more people in this province at this juncture, as we tape this, than any other premier in the country. I'd say that's pretty impressive.
Yep. Yeah, that's also a good one. Althea, interested to hear your choice.
Yeah, if we're going to stay with the pandemic, I guess we probably should be saying first responders, the doctors and nurses who are handling all these cases in ICUs and hospitals across this country. But my first thought went to politicians as well. And my pick is Mark Miller, actually, which has less to do with the role he's played during the pandemic. But I feel like he's kind of somebody in the Trudeau cabinet that we don't talk enough about. I think that the rail blockades could have been a lot worse early last winter if it wasn't for Mark Miller's style. He's somebody who's very honest and trustworthy. It's very rare that you see a cabinet minister kind of disagree with his colleagues in the middle of a press conference. And we saw that with comments he made about the RCMP's actions out east with regards to the fishermen there. So I've really been impressed by his leadership, and I think we should gold star to Mark Miller.
Late last night, Iran confirmed that it unintentionally shot down Flight 752. We're working very hard to end the blockades. It's an unacceptable situation. This has been a heartbreaking week for Nova Scotians and for all Canadians.
I'll be stepping down as Finance Minister and as Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre.
Good morning. I'm Aaron O'Toole. You're going to be seeing and hearing a lot from me in the coming weeks and months.
That's just a few of the other big political stories of 2020. Welcome back to another round of At Issue. That would also explain why we all might be tired, because those are all the things that didn't happen around the pandemic. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. A really odd and jam-packed year. Obviously, the pandemic dominated the agenda. Because of that, stories that were missed. Let's start with you, Chantal. A political story you think didn't get enough attention this year?
It's not a political story necessarily, but it's the opioid crisis and the debate that was starting to happen about how we handle hard drugs in this country and how we mitigate what is really not a pandemic, but an epidemic. And the numbers, the pandemic have made those numbers worse. And I suspect that debate is waiting for us on the other side of the pandemic, and so it should.
Yep. Althea, a story that we should have talked about more or didn't get talked about enough?
Canadian Armed Forces member tried to kill the Prime Minister. It's still, I find it surprising that you mentioned this and most people are like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. Or I didn't even realize that happened in July. And it was like a 48-hour story. And we didn't really talk about it, what the impacts are on security at Rideau Hall against the Prime Minister, what changes were made in the forces. Mind-boggling, frankly.
Yeah. Andrew.
I think I say this every year, but I think I have a particular reason to say it this year. Population aging.
You do say
it every year, but that's okay. It's still true every year.
Well, a lot of people were reassured.
Yeah.
You know, when we started running deficits of 20% of GDP, people said, well, it's just like World War II. We'll be able to grow our way out of it. Well, after World War II, the economy grew at 5-6% per year after inflation for decades. Well, that's not going to happen this time. The economy is only going to grow by maybe 1.5% per year. So we're not going to be able to grow our way out of this kind of debt. It presents particular challenges. And the really bad news is it's not even the problem at the federal level, as big as the deficits are federal. The real problem is the provinces. Yeah. They are in a terrible fix. The pandemic and the deficits they've had to run has made it worse. But ultimately, there's only one taxpayer. Ultimately, it's the combined debt that matters. And we are in a real pickle.
Yeah, no, listen, that's a fresh point on a perspective you've given us before, so I'll accept it. One thought on sort of the challenge of 2021 or the thing you're going to keep an eye on in 2021, Chantal.
The efficiency of vaccine distribution, obviously. But also, you know, you asked initially one word to describe the year. I'll use a few more. Challenging with a possible federal election on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all good ones. Althea.
I completely agree. I think the challenge is immunizing most of the population. And I think what to look ahead politically is the possible spring election.
Andrew.
I think the spring budget is going to be one for the ages, for good or ill. It's going to be a huge increase in spending. It's going to have all kinds of momentous policy decisions. It is intended to tee up the election. And it's going to be interesting to see how the official opposition frames its opposition to that. What counter proposals, what contrary vision is it going to offer?
I'm going to offer one too, if I can, because because I'm in charge. I'm going to say the inequities that the pandemic has exposed, the cracks in society, and whether those cracks get fixed or whether we just go on pretending that we didn't see them the first time around. That's something that's a big one, but that's the one I'm going to keep an eye on. Thank you all. Always good to think about the year that was, even like one like this. It has been good to have you with us every Thursday in spite of all of it. Thank you. Happy holidays, and thanks to all of you for watching. At Issue